we're not here to make up the numbers, we're here to compete as well. This squad, with the power they have on their day, they can do anything they want.
Hello, welcome back to the Glassgirls Network with me, Jonathan. Today I am joined by Louisa Butcher. How are you doing, Lou? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Fresh off the back of a 3-0 victory against Light today for the development team. How do you feel today went?
Yeah, it was good. There was a lot of hype about the game, but I feel like the girls did really well. And yeah, won the game.
Quite a few of our former players turned up today as well. I don't know if you got a chance to actually see or speak to them. Obviously, you played against one of them in Lindsay Glover, but Alex was there, Courtney was there, Carly Aldridge was there as well. I guess it was nice to see a few old faces.
Yeah, it was nice. And even now, my sister plays for Light, so it was nice for her to come and watch.
Yeah.
It's been great.
That's good, yeah. And obviously the win today has really put Stourbridge development team in the driving seat for the rest of the season regarding that league. It's amazing to see how quickly they've gone from a brand new team to where they are now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been great. A lot of the girls have had to come together, play with one leg or whatever to get fixtures on. I mean, we've had games where we've played with 9. So yeah, the girls have been great. And there's a lot of girls that deserve a lot of credit for playing through injuries and giving things up when other players haven't been able to make stuff. And it's been great, really. It's been a real team effort.
It really has, and the fluidity between both teams as well. Like the players who have played in the reserve team and development team, we've been using the word pathway a hell of a lot this year, especially across social media. And it's kind of shown, hasn't it, like the amount of players who have played in both teams. You're not necessarily a reserve team player or a development team player. You just go where Harry, Ken and Ryan want you. That's
right, it's kind of been like where we see fit players go. Different players are suited for different games. And that's nothing against them. That's just part of football. So yeah, from the start of the season, it's not been your reserves, your development team. It's kind of been, we're in this together, and it's almost been like a joint outcome. Both teams had separate aims, but we've worked together as a group to get there.
It's worked really well. Obviously, helped develop the players as well, hasn't it? Yeah. You got on the score sheet yourself a couple of times in recent weeks. How's that felt being on the other end of the pitch?
Yeah, it's been great, really. I said at the beginning of this season that I wanted to score. It's been quite a while since I scored, and I scored both times for the development team. But last week, I don't even know what came over me. I think just adrenaline, and I knew that we needed to get 3 points. And yeah.
Yeah, a couple of cracking results for the development team recently. I've got some stats, so Rich has been on the case again. So I was going to read out a few things because if you're like a new fan, you may not be aware of some of these stats. So I was going to read them out, and just so we can get hold of them. There might be a couple of appearances out there because when Richard sent me this, I'm not too sure exactly when it was, but it'll be there or thereabouts. So for the first team, you've had 55 appearances. Reserve team 31. Development team 3, maybe 4 now. So that's a total of about 90 appearances with 3 goals. And then obviously in Tier 6 and Tier 5 you gain promotion, Tier 5 League and Cup double. What goes through your head when you think of those amount of appearances? Because I believe that only Lil Beth, Esme, Amy and G have got more appearances than yourself in a Stourbridge shirt. It's massive.
Yeah, Rich messaged me a couple of weeks ago and was like, do you realise you played like your 85th game? And I was like, no. I didn't even realise, to be honest. I mean, it doesn't feel like I've played nearly 90 games. I feel like I've only been here 2 seasons, but yeah, thinking back to when I first joined, it has been quite a few years.
So name a few people, name a few players and that people may not remember. So obviously, like in the Tier 6 days, what kind of players were we kind of looking at? Can you remember any of the old?
When I first joined, there was Danny Ranger, Amy Botfish, Stacey, Lil, Ez, Jess. These are the sorts of players I played with. Sam Whittaker. People probably don't know who she is, but yeah, me and her play centre back together. There's been loads of players that people probably don't even know, but they were here before I'd even joined. yeah, my sister, she's only just recently left, but yeah, she was in and around then. Mollie-mai, she's been here that long as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's quite a few. There's not many of us left anymore, but yeah.
There's definitely not. No, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll speak about Rich. He has come out with a comment. I just had to read it. So this wasn't planned to be on the podcast, but I did ask him, would you mind if I just actually read this out, because I think it nails absolutely what everyone thinks about you at the club. And he used the word underrated or understated, one or the other, but I get what he meant. So I was going to read this out. In my view, Louisa's contribution to the club is massively understated. She is a ridiculously mature, composed 19-year-old when she first joined us and was part of 2 promotion-winning teams. But to me, the part she has played since outweighs that. Being a role model and leader to the army of youngsters within the pathway is a legacy she can already be proud of, and I hope she is nowhere near finished yet. So that was very nice for him to say that, because he never actually, he just commented, he just sent me a message on that when he sent the stats through. And I thought that was really nice. And even in the clubhouse, like every week, you know, whenever someone sees Lou, that's kind of like the vibe around the place. Do you see yourself as like a role model or anything like that at all?
I wouldn't necessarily see myself as a role model. I know a lot of the girls are like, always come to speak to me, but I just find I am an approachable person. And I've said to many of the girls before, the club no longer is probably about me. I'm here to pass on my knowledge to those younger players, because in 10 years' time, I probably won't be playing in the nicest possible way. I'll be over 30, and those girls will be coming up. They will be in their middle 20s, that they are the future of this club, and we need to look after players like that. And we need to pass on knowledge. Like, they're only young. They're only going to gain experience from people like me. So I wouldn't necessarily see myself as a role model. They all call me the mom of the group, or the nan of the group, which Grace Rogers came up with, which is slightly concerning, because I'm not the oldest. But yeah, it's nice really to see those people come to me. People that I wouldn't necessarily say have the confidence to come and speak to me, but outside of training, messages and people just being like, can I just have a word? And it's key that we keep that going, and we make sure we look after our younger players, because they are the future of this club, and they're going to carry on the legacy of almost what I started when I first joined.
Yeah, well, we hit that a little bit later, because that's certainly something I want to get into. You just mentioned the younger players, the under-16s are there today, so obviously they're watching the team that they aspire to be playing in next season in the development team, and obviously you was the captain there today. So, you know, how does it make you feel to see like the under-16s? I don't know if you actually saw them, but it was behind the goal on some sort of ledge where they could sit safely, and it was all there cheering for yourself and obviously the rest of the team. But you just mentioned the youngsters there, that's the under-16s there, and you could potentially be captaining them next season, and they're there supporting and watching you. How does that make you and the rest of the girls feel as well?
It's great to have support from the girls' teams, because a lot of the girls go and watch them, and it's nice to see that they can give something to us and we give something to them. It's really nice. We've had the 16s come and train with us when they came down, and we're like running their training session alongside ours, which is great for them, because a lot of them do look up to us and look up to the first team, and to put them in a little environment where, yeah, they warm up with us, and okay, they've gone and done their own training session, but they can see people like Ella play today. We've had Lily Portman and Linnea, who have been playing for us, which has been great, because they can see it is achievable. And people who have come up from the 16s last year, like Alice, Erin, Ellie, like they can see that those players are coming up and it is achievable, which has been made present because even Ellie's made first team appearances. Like they can see the youngsters are making the first team appearances. Charlie, Grace, they can see it's achievable.
Yeah, 100%.
Which I think is good for them, because they can see, yeah, if I stick with it and if I back myself, I can do it because they've done it, and I think that's good for them to see.
Let's talk a little bit about your Tier 6 and Tier 5 days then, because I think that's quite relevant. So obviously, people who may not have followed this, they can learn a little bit today, but also I'm looking at like what the development team are doing there and what the pathway players are doing now. They can potentially be doing it all over again creating like a second team to go, 3 consecutive promotions or go from like tier 8 to tier 5, which is amazing. But obviously when you done that back in tier 6, tier 5, Stourbridge wasn't known as a massive women's football team.
No.
Now they are, because the first team in the National League. But obviously when you was first there, they weren't massive in the Black Country. Kidderminster was obviously bigger, and I'm sure a lot of other teams were as well. What do you think kind of made Stourbridge go above these teams, and what made Stourbridge stand out back then?
So the reason I joined Stourbridge, just to start off with, was Andy used to teach me.
Okay.
So I knew Andy from when he was at my school, and I knew a couple of the girls. Like, I used to play football with Shan Roach, who was at Stourbridge at the time. And I'd seen it advertised, and I kind of just was like, well, I'll go for it. And I didn't necessarily look about, to be honest. I just thought, you know what, I'll give it a shot. Got nothing to lose. But then, like, you see other teams about, like, Kiddie and Lie and teams like this. But I think the thing that stuck out to start off with is we were being backed by the chairman and the vice chairman here. I didn't necessarily know much about the men, so I don't know how much backing originally came from the men, but throughout we've had backing from the vice chairman, from the chairman, and it's been great, really, because that's been able to push it a little bit more than probably other clubs do. Just because we've had the backing from the men's team now, really. And even, I go back to the FA Cup game that we played at Derby away, and Stu and Leon, I think, had just recently taken over as managers of the men's team, and they came into the changing room before the game and gave us like a pep talk, and you probably wouldn't necessarily get that from another team. Like, you don't see that with teams in and around those kind of tiers, and I think that's what makes it a little bit more special, is there are like people like that are coming to watch us. Like, you'll see some of the lads teams managers, they'll come and watch us, and that's something that I think we had a backing of a lot of people to start off with to do well. And I think because they saw us do so well, we got more backing, and it's nice for us. And I think that's where we probably stood out a little bit more, because we were getting backed by a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, can't say anything different to that, to be fair. Everything that I hear is about how much the two Andys backed, and obviously continue to back Mike as well, and you can see it on the pitch, can't you? And also you talk a lot about like the togetherness as well of the team, and we see like a difference. Obviously, you probably hear things from other teams as well. Do you think back then, what we done like back at the clubhouse, after a game in tier 6 and tier 5, do you think that ever helped?
Yeah, massively. Like, I was, the social side of it, I was never ever used to. So and when people were like, oh, do you want to go back for a drink after the game, I was a bit like, oh, wasn't really too sure, because it's something that I've never ever been used to.
Yeah.
So I think that helps massively, because the people that come back, now there's loads of devs and reserves out there.
Yeah.
And it's great, because that's where the bonds are made. Like, we don't get what we get on a Sunday without the togetherness that we've got of getting to know each other outside of football.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we've done so well. And I think that's why we had so much success in tier 6 and tier 5, because the togetherness outweighed anything could go on that football pitch, but we all stuck by each other as individuals, because we all got on with each other. There's the odd thing where you're not going to get on with everyone, that's part of life, but it's quite nice to have the togetherness and the fact that we all get on, because there are 16-year-olds, and I'm one of the old ones, but we all talk to each other, and they're not scared of us, and we're not scared of them, and it's nice, really, because I think that helps. That outweighs everything, the football, everything. As long as you've got those key partnerships and those key groups, and you've got the togetherness, anything can happen.
Yeah, I guess if you didn't know it as much, I suppose when you go to training, you'll see each other like hour and a half per session, so maybe like 3 hours a week, and then obviously you're expected to play with each other on a Sunday, whereas if you spend a bit of time away, spend a bit of time together off the football pitch, you kind of build up the relationships, and you start to get to know each other a little bit more, so you're not as like nervous around people, especially like yourself, like a captain, just that let us see might make a few of the 16 to 18-year-olds feel a little bit like nervous. Oh, she's a captain.
Yeah.
You know, and I can probably see that. Whereas because you speak to them regularly and everyone speaks to each other regularly, everyone feels comfortable around each other, don't they? And
Yeah,
it's not so drastic, I guess, when you get called up, especially the under 16s who just come into devs and reserve teams, players that might get called up into the first team. Everyone's really close with each other, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is that what you would encourage like the pathway players to do now, or almost replicate what you did in tier 5 and tier 6?
Oh yeah, I think a massive key part of why we were so successful was how together we were as individuals. The laughing and the joking and the taking the mick out of each other at the clubhouse. I mean, probably after a few too many pints, but I think it's key that we try and almost replicate that. I don't think we'll ever replicate what happened, because that is just like that's part of Stourbridge and that's part of the history. I don't think it will ever be replicated in the same way, but I think the key part for the success of the development team to try and do what the first team did is the togetherness of the team and the banter and all this. I mean, most of them make TikToks before a game, and I'm really not that sort of person, but I get involved. I'm like, this is great, and they teach me a thing or two. Like, it's quite nice actually, and I think the fact that they can come and speak to us as more senior players, it's great, and I think the togetherness is, you can't compare it to anything.
So you was a big part of the team that obviously got promoted from C6 to 5 and then 5 to 4. Then obviously you spent more time in the reserve team. How's the reserve team? What did the reserve team kind of learn last season in the first year of being in the reserve team National League that they kind of brought into this season? Because obviously there's been a massive jump, hasn't there? Which is absolutely fine. Obviously last season it was the first time that he was in the league. But then this season, you know, it looks like they can push you for top 4, if not higher. You know, what do you think that you learned from last season?
I think we probably underestimated the demands of the league last year.
Okay.
We never thought that we were ever going to be up there. We thought if we end up mid-table, that'll be great. And I think that was the expectation. We went in a little bit like we weren't sure.
Yeah.
And I think because we've got the experience in that league now, there's been other teams that have come up, and I think the group that we've got have probably backed each other a bit more. We've known what to expect this year. Like last year, we were probably a little bit defensive and we got caught out quite a few times. So like we conceded a lot of goals just outside the 18-yard box. And I think we've learned from that. I think we've conceded 1 goal from long distance this year, and that was right at the beginning of the season. And I think we've learned a lot from what was done last year. I mean, I've learned a lot from what happened last year, and I think we conceded a lot of goals in the last minute. One game that sticks out is Sporting Kelsa. We were 3-1 up at the end of last season. I think we ended up drawing the game 3-3, and we were lucky to come away with a 3-3. And I think we've learned the game management side of things, and I think we've had a change of manager and different things like that, but I don't necessarily think that that's down. It's down to some of the success, but it's not everything. We've learned a lot from being in that league last year. Players probably weren't prepared for it because a lot of the reserve players that were in the reserves last year had played like tier 7 before.
Yeah.
So I don't think they were necessarily understanding the demands of that league, like the fitness. A lot of those girls are academy players. You've got the likes of Derby, Wolves, West Brom were in there last year, Stoke, and I think we probably didn't really acknowledge how good they were going to be. I think we underestimated it a little bit. But this year we've gone in. I think we've backed ourselves a little bit more. I mean, I didn't play, but the girls went to Derby 2 weeks ago, and the belief in the changing room before the game. We knew before we'd even kicked a ball that we could make an upset here. Derby hadn't dropped a point all season.
This is it, yeah.
We went to Peterborough with 11 players, and we believed in ourselves before the game, and we were 1-0 up at half time. We got a bit tired, we ended up losing 2-1, but that's better than the result that we had with 16 players when we played at home. And I think the belief and the backing that we've got of each other is why we're doing so well. Like, we could turn up with any 16 players, and I think we all back ourselves to actually get something. And I think that's what's been key to why we've been so successful, and we are up there. We are competing with the likes of Wolves and Derby, who have got academy players that have been in and around academies for ages. And I think it's great.
Well, this is what I'm going to mention, and you spoke about all those teams there. It's a massive achievement to say that some of those teams that you're up against, some of those players, you mentioned they've got academies, but they've also got very experienced Tier 3 players that may have dropped down into the reserve league, obviously, as Wolves and Derby get stronger throughout over the seasons. Some of those players might fall into the reserve league. So you're up against 16 to 18-year-olds playing up against those quality players. It's a massive jump, isn't it? And sometimes you don't look at it that way because you just see two clubs next to each other. But you look at the experienced players in that league and you're competing against them for top 4. It's absolutely amazing, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about the ambitions for maybe for the remainder of the season, and also maybe going into next season as well for the reserve team.
Reserve team is to finish as high as possible. That's the aim that we've got. Top 4, great. If we can get any better than top 4, that is a lot better than we set out at the beginning of the year. I don't think necessarily at the beginning of the season we expected to be in and around the top 4, but now we're there, we may as well stay there. Devs obviously is to win their league, and they've still got their cup to come as well. So they can go on a little cup run, but mainly win the league for the Devs, have a good cup run, reserves finish as high as possible. We've already achieved better than we did last season, so anything on top of that is great. And I think going forward, the Devs are going to be in, hopefully, Tier 6, I think, next year. So I think for them to perform well, maybe push for maybe winning the league. I'm not too sure that's what everybody else thinks, but I think it's key that they probably have that message instilled in them already. And I think, again, reserves, I'd like to go on a good cup run next year. We had a good one last year, not so good this year, but hopefully good cup run in the plate or the cup, the National Reserve Cup. Would be great. I think that's my aim for next year, and obviously finishing the top 4 again,
Absolutely.
if we can.
I was going to finish on one last thing. It's obviously because you have been with the club for so long. Just what are your favourite memories throughout your first team and obviously the reserve team as well? What are your favourite memories?
The first one that sticks out in my brain quite well has got to be the County Cup game that we played against Wolves in my first season, I think it was, and we took them all the way to penalties. Nobody knew, let alone Stourbridge at the time. I think we played in front of 550 fans. Maybe I might have overread that a bit, but that sticks out to me massively because a lot of the players that we had at the time never even thought about competing against a team. I think they might have been in Tier 4 at the time. I'm not too sure. But we literally went toe-to-toe with them for 90 minutes. And I think we were even beating them at one point. So that sticks out massively in my head. More recently, I mean, obviously winning the league. Anyone likes to win a league and a cup double, that's great. I think recently, as a memory, is probably leading those girls out week in, week out. It's a massive privilege to be captain. But also I don't think I could do it without the girls that I have in the reserves around me. Even when I'm not feeling great, some of those girls pick me up and it's great. I had a little moment at the beginning of the season when we lost to Lincoln, where I did fully debate if I was doing the right thing. But the girls came around and we joke about it now because I did lose my head and I did shout at them, which is not me at all. And now, I think that sticks in my head recently is favourite is being able to lead those girls out and have the privilege of sharing the pitch with some of them because they are a lovely group of girls. And it's hard to come by as a group of girls that all get on in women's football because it gets so political at times, but they are great. And I think that's my favourite memory at the minute is, and will be for this season, is leading those girls out week in, week out.
Luke, thank you very much. I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of your evening now.
Thank
It's been a
you.
great few weeks for you on the reserve team and the development team. So yeah, I'll let you enjoy it. And thank you very much for joining me. I know a lot of people have wanted this for a long time, so it'll be great to obviously get you out there as well, so other people can see and hear what we've just spoken about. Best luck for the rest of the season.
Perfect. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.